2, 3. This is Amari Purple Talk. Yes. Welcome to episode 88 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, imaginationist, comic book myth builder, and the Vic Sage of Funk. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please leave your comments in the comments section below, and please download on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And please continue to send your questions or topic suggestions for Amari Purple Talk. And how you can do that is by clicking the link in the show notes below, either the website link for Amari Communications, or by following me on Twitter at RichardCole_now using the hashtag Amari Purple Talk, and your topic or question might just be read in a future episode. All right, and with that out of the way, we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. All right, so this is episode 88. That means we're getting closer to our 100th episode. And don't have any ideas for a 100th episode as of yet, but as I get the ideas, I will relay them on to you, and we're going to try to have some fun. Now, we're a long way from season 3 of Amari Purple Talk, but hopefully during that time, I'd like to kind of open up the show to guest hosts and possibly interviews. Hopefully we can do interviews like maybe the second half of season 3. But again, as I work out the logistics, my time schedule, and for those I would like to have on the show, I get to work that out in the months to come. And once I reach a decision, I'll let you know. So currently, I am reading an advanced copy of Prince and the Parade Sign of the Times Sessions, written by Dwayne Tudhall, author of Prince and the Purple Rain era Sessions. If you don't have that book, by all means, pick that one up. The current book regarding Parade and the Sign of the Times era Sessions, that will be dropping June 15th. So definitely pick that up when it comes out. Right now I do have an advanced copy, so thanks to the author Dwayne Tudhall. And thanks to Corey from Rauman and Littlefield for providing me with a copy. Right now I am in the middle of April in the book. It is quite the eye-opener, and I will do a sort of a non-spoiler review once I'm done reading the book, and I'll do a spoiler review sometime either the day that the book is released or maybe sometime after. So be on the lookout. Next week, hopefully, non-spoiler review, and then around the date of actual release, then I'll do an actual spoiler review on the Parade Sign of the Time era sessions. So tune in, same purple time, same purple channel for all the latest details. And with that out of the way, we're going to move on to the poll results from last week. Last week we discussed the possibility of the Most Beautiful Girl in the World lawsuit being settled, hopefully in some way, shape, or fashion, although that has not been officially announced. But a more recent court document filed by the Prince estate, the legal language is in request for possibly opening the door for some type of resolution or credit resolution that could possibly, somewhere down the road, open the door to the Prince estate getting the full rights to using that song again without any damage to Prince's reputation and also without any loss of huge financial compensation on that. So that being said, if that does happen, that also opens the door for a reissue of the Gold Experience or a Gold Experience Super Deluxe or any box set or compilation pertaining to that period in which that song is historically the most important piece of the equation. So we have the results of the poll. And again, that question was, with the rumors of a settlement regarding the most beautiful girl in the world, do you think there will be a Gold Experience Super Deluxe or a proper standalone reissue of the album being considered for 2022? And the results are a overwhelming 75% in support of a Gold Experience Super Deluxe, possibly coming as soon as 2022, and 25% of you deciding that a Gold Experience, just a single standalone album reissue, could possibly be coming in 2022. So thanks to each and every one of you that participated in that poll. And as we do more of those, would encourage even more participation as well. So again, thanks again for participating, and let's wait and see till 2022. It's something I'm looking forward to, and I hope a lot of you would be looking forward to that as well. So we will see. So with that out of the way, let's move on to our first topic today. And our first topic was a question submitted by Vault Curator. Thanks for submitting the question. And the question basically is, will fans forget original Protege albums in favor of original Prince versions of those Protege albums? And I think the question revolved around, there's been rumors circulating about time reissues. One of those we're going to discuss later on in the show. But there was also a possibility that an Originals 2 is being considered somewhere down the line as well. Again, none of those have been officially announced by the Prince estate or Sony Legacy or Warner Brothers internationally. So, but those rumors were based on an interview with Michael Howe that was kind of right around the beginning of the year. Definitely like a month or two prior to the announcement of Welcome to America and The Truth being released. So it kind of begged the question that, will fans sort of forget once they hear the Prince versions or demo versions or guide vocal versions? Would people prefer to listen to those and just forget about, say, The Time, or forget about Jill Jones, or forget about Vanity 6? And I don't know, it really depends. And I kind of put together a few possibilities in which that could or definitely could not happen. So to start with, I think it would depend on the quality of the Prince original, meaning finished vocal versus demo. And with the release of Originals, that compilation, to me, that was a step in the right direction for the estate to release. And it was an original compilation. There's really no artist I can think of in this case where that artist's output in regards to producing other people where, even the demos or the guide vocals or whatever, the original composition, and Prince was like, here, just sing it how I did on this tape. I don't think that, there's very few that, can do that, let alone sustain an entire compilation. There's tons of artists across the board where maybe a song or two, you can include it in an artist box set or include it as a bonus track, where there's that version versus how people may know it from the artist it was given to. There's been tons of cover versions of other artists as well. So this is a very unique position to be in, where not only have we done it for one album, meaning originals, that there's a possibility you could do a second volume, a third volume, a fourth volume. There's probably maybe 20, 25 volumes of originals you could possibly put out, given the number of songs that were written and produced for not only other artists in Prince camp, but, there's Sheena Easton. There's like 3 or 4 songs that have been on her albums, written and possibly produced by Prince as well. You've got, I'm drawing a blank now, but there's a Howard Hewitt song called Allegiance that was written by Prince. That can be on a compilation as well. So, but it just really depends on the quality of that song. Now, demos are pretty much a rarity when it comes to Prince. Usually the majority of songs are pretty much finished and, intended to either pop up on an album or intended for an album, but switched out for something different and put in the vault. Maybe some songs were turned down by either the protege artists themselves, or if he was intending it to give it to, say Whitney Houston or something, and she turned it down or something. So it just depends on the quality of it. Listening to originals, I didn't start doing the podcast when that album originally came out, so there's no previous review I can recommend. But in a nutshell, it is an album that I enjoy. I like a lot of songs better than others. As far as a whole, there are some versions of songs where it's like, man, I really enjoyed the Prince vocal. There might be 1 or 2 songs where I really prefer the protege version of the song. So, I don't know. I might do a separate video or something for that later on down the line. But to me, for example, the version of Jungle Love on originals, it's pretty good, but you can pretty much, if you listen close enough, pretty much tell it's a guide vocal. It's not intended to be a polished or finished version, because this was definitely intended for the time. This wasn't a song where Prince was intending to write a song for an album of his and decided later, like, oh, this would fit better with the time. This is Jungle Love is a groove that was originated by Jesse Johnson, and Prince kind of took it to the finish line, but for all intents and purposes was intended to go to the group and nowhere else at that point. Now there's another song on originals, Noon Rendezvous. I love the hell out of the Prince version. It has, I would say, slightly superseded my love for the original track on Sheila E.'s The Glamorous Life. But they both work. They both work. It's just a slight edge. it's not the first time I've heard Prince do that song. I've heard him do it live on the June 7th, 1984 birthday show at First Avenue. And I thought that version was nice. But, I mean, the album on, the song on Sheila E.'s album, it works just as well. It's a really great performance. I enjoy listening to it. Last couple of times I've played that album. I enjoy listening to it. I don't skip past it. So they both work. So again, it just really depends on what what the quality of the original song is in. If it's a demo, scratch vocals, depending maybe just how Prince was feeling. Even though it was a guide vocal, maybe he was just feeling really enthusiastic that day or really happy that day. And that shines through the performance, even though it's just guide vocals. And that can elevate the track as well. Or, like I said, in the rare case of it being a demo, then you just kind of take it with a grain of salt. But that's one way. Another way is, another version would be a matter of generation, meaning the nostalgia factor versus the level of newbie interest. So you take somebody like me that, I was a teenager and college age throughout the 80s. So a lot of Prince was unfolding for me in real time. And just as the Protégés, there's the time, experiencing that first album in real time, then skip ahead 6-9 months, whatever. Then here comes What Time Is It? That album, and experiencing that in real time. So, or even, Sign of the Times, there was experiencing that album. Then, before that, we had the Madhouse album. I know that summer or early summer, I got the Jill Jones album. And just where I was in any period of time, it brings back memories. When you go back and play them back, it brings back memories. Then you have people that come in and, it's 1995 and, some 15, 16, 17-year-old is experiencing a lot of Prince and the associated artists for the first time. So it's kind of like a reaching back. But it doesn't disavow their perception in the wave of nostalgia. Fast forward to 2021 and they go back and say play Jill Jones' album. Even though it came out in 1997, someone is exposed to it in 1995. And wherever they were in that time, if they were feeling happy, if they were feeling sad, if it was a great time in their life, it was new experience or love or, ups, downs, whatever. And when that album came into their life, when they're sitting here in 2021 and they look back on 1995 and go, wow, that Jill Jones album, it was there for me during that time. And that was a happy memory, or it got me through a sad memory, or whatever that person is feeling. Again, that's a wave of nostalgia for that person as well. And at the same time, being exposed to it at regardless of what age. If you're just playing catch up in whether it's 1995 or 2015 or last week or last month, then, you've got that. Like, there's no understanding or perception of what it was really like in 1987 to experience that. Or, not realizing in 1981 with that First Time album that the absolute image and style and the whole thing with that band didn't really gel until What Time Is It? And then the Triple Threat Tour. What we now know as Morris Day and the Time solidified in that second album. But, that doesn't discredit the power that the first album had. It made some noise too. But if you're coming in at a much later date and not understanding that perspective, then there's people out there that's wondering, well, what's all the fuss about? Well, who's this band? Or, who's this protege? What's Vanity Six all about? What's Carmen Electra all about? So you kind of have that as a factor too. So if you have Prince fans coming in at a later date and playing catch up without the historical perspective or understanding of the historical perspective, then yeah, you can argue that they can hear the original version, and because they've just been entrenched by the Prince experience without understanding what all the other stuff was about, they might go, yeah, well, I dig the original Prince vocal better. But again, I think it goes back to number one. What's the quality of the original versus the protege? And throw in too the performance factor. You can take maybe some of the stuff on the Apollonia 6 album, which to me in hindsight is a stronger album, I feel now, than it was when I first heard it in 1984. Not to say that the songs weren't great. They were still great songs. I enjoyed listening to them. But in the wake of having read Dwayne Tudor's Purple Rain Sessions book and going back and reevaluating those tracks, yeah, they feel better. They sound better to me now. So you can throw that in. And if, there are Prince originals, Prince is going to be Prince, and he's going to put 199.99999 into 200 to 200,000% in every song anyway. So you can kind of put that in as an argument as well. So from that, we're going to move to a matter of individual taste, regardless of age. So, like I always say here on Amari Purple Talk, music is subjective. Movies are subjective. So what I dig, you might not dig. What somebody likes or loves, they may not like or love. Doesn't mean that whatever it is good or bad. It's just a matter of taste, and that's okay. If there's something you get out of something that I don't enjoy, then that's good. It's making you feel good, and that's what really matters, and vice versa. So, regardless of whenever you became a Prince fan or whenever you got into certain proteges, if you liked it, you liked it. If you don't, you don't. That there's, like I always say, there's always an album, or there's always a protege act or a protege's album that does it for you. And that's cool too. And then we also have some possible solutions to this dilemma. Instead of putting a dividing line on, the Prince original is better, or, I prefer the memories of, this Time album, or I prefer the memories of that Madhouse album. A possible solution would be having deluxe versions or deluxe associated artist sets, which would include the original album along with originals as sort of a time capsule of the evolution of the sessions. Like I said, I'm in the middle of reading Dwayne Tudor's Parade, Sign of the Times era sessions. And there was a tidbit about a song. I'm not going to spoil it. But in regards to protege acts, and it was amazing that I read this just as I was preparing for this particular topic, there was a revelation that just absolutely blew my mind. It was something that I had absolutely no clue it existed. Although there may have been times, not many, but once or twice, there was a certain question about a particular era that I had, and that one entry solved that, it answered that question. And in regards to this possible solution, it adds to it. Because, again, you can have a disc that has the original album, hopefully remastered, but the original album, and then you have the Prince originals in whatever shape or form or many forms as the second disc, and just place everything in its historical context. Now, I take a band like The Time, and, the thing about all the passage of time, we're into really 40 plus years of Prince music. And when it comes to the proteges, there's always sort of a stereotype that gets perpetuated. And that's he latches on to a new love. And then it's like, I'm going to gift that person an album. That way I can keep them close, keep them in control, blah, 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 blah. But we forget The Time are really strong, capable musicians in their own right. In other words, you had Morris Day, phenomenal drummer that was playing with Prince and was even better than most of the drummers that he had at that time. Or could go toe to toe with some of the best drummers in the game. You had Andre Simone, where it was like a Lennon and McCartney type rivalry between the two of them, in their formative years. Then you had Flight Time, which got integrated into the actual Time, where they were going toe to toe with Prince, Andre, and Morris with Battle of the Bands in high school. What you see in Purple Rain, that rivalry, yeah, that was based on a real thing. And then you have Jesse Johnson, who is a phenomenal guitarist in his own right. And edgier, because where I think Prince gravitates towards the Santana influence, Jesse is Hendrix, Eddie Hazel, and the Three Kings, Albert King, Freddie King, B.B. King. And you bring that type of musical knowledge into your guitar equation, yeah, there's few that could stand in your way. And I think Prince had a very deep respect for that talent base. You had Madhouse with Eric Leeds, Basically, to me, Eric Leeds is the Maceo to Prince's James Brown. And again, phenomenal musician. You take Sheila E., a phenomenal drummer, percussionist. So you have that equation, which really gets taken for granted because we focus on the stereotype of, the girl of the moment, with depending, what your level of taste may be, their ability to sing a song or an entire song or carry an entire album. But it's Prince pulling the strings the whole way. We take that for granted a lot. So, like a comparison for like a group that gets absolutely no respect is a group like the Monkees. Yes, they were put together for the strict purpose of a TV show. Only 2 of the 4 were actual musicians and actual songwriters. And they had to fight hard to overcome a lot of adversity to prove that A, they could be an actual band, B, that they were capable of writing and producing their own material, which they did prove on at least one album of theirs during their, time together as a band. The rest were put together. Those songs were written and produced by a lot of the biggest names in music, whether it's Goffin King, Neil Diamond. I think Neil Sedaka wrote a couple. You had Boyce and Hart. The session musicians on those albums were a lot of what was known as the Wrecking Crew. There's a documentary. Check that out. Those cats played on not only like the Monkees, they played on the Beach Boys, Sonny and Cher, you name it. Not only just pop music, television shows, the Mission Impossible theme, I think the Hawaii Five-0 theme, television, movies, a lot of the biggest pop hits, jazz hits, whatever in the 60s, that was the Wrecking Crew. So, like I said, there's a documentary by that title. By all means, check that out as well. But again, you had this sort of prefabricated group that had to prove that they could handle it live, and they went out there and handled it live. Now, not to say that the time, or like the Monkees, that is way off. They are the time is much better. Like I said, they were better musicians, better songwriters, the whole nine. But if there is a comparison, I would say take a look at the Jacksons or the Jackson 5, because they were talented. They could play their own instruments, they could sing, but when they got to Motown, it was a lot of other people writing the songs. They wouldn't let the Jacksons write their own songs. In the beginning, it was the Funk Brothers, the Motown house band, which there's a documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. Go seek that out and watch that. Because, like I said, you had the Wrecking Crew that played on all the pop hits. You had the Funk Brothers that played on every single Motown record throughout the 60s and early 70s. And from the mid 70s till the time they left Motown, there were Los Angeles studio musicians of the moment that played on a lot of those Jackson 5 albums as well. But the Jackson 5 had to pull it off live. Their instruments were plugged in. Their microphones were on. And you got to look at the time in that equation. Prince, came up with the concept, wrote all the songs, or co-wrote, produced all the songs, but Morris Day was sort of the co-pilot. He co-produced it. He played the drums on most of those songs, on those Time albums, and you got to give it up to Morris as being a phenomenal drummer. I think just in recent years, he's beginning to pronounce that more and more and show that it's like, yeah, I was a drummer. And not only was he the drummer on that, that's his drums on Controversy. That's his drums on Less Work. That's his drums on International Lover. So, I mean, this group ain't no joke. It's no joke at all. So we take that for granted, like I said, in the face of the stereotype of Prince being sort of this Svengali, to a lot of, the girls of the moment, and being gifted an album like that, where I think if Vanity hung around, I think her music career would have been a lot bigger than what it was, or what it ended up being when she left. You got to give it up to Sheila E. that's managed to continue to hold her own even through 2021. Jill Jones was, to me, that album was the casualty of having sat on the shelf for way too long, which meant like maybe a year and a half too long. Had it come out a year and a half sooner, that momentum and that trajectory could have gone in a different direction, But after that, like I said, I think with the Carmen Electras and whoever came slightly before that or slightly after that, anybody else, it just kind of ended up becoming a joke and a stereotype with that. So if you put the originals with, the sort of the original album, then I think it puts everything in a context. I don't think it should be a case of this is better than that. It just shows how this project came together. And it's a fascinating look at just how, how phenomenal this dude, again, that's something else we take for granted. We kind of just throw up, oh yeah, he's great. Oh, yeah, he's a genius. But the amount of work, and which is why I encourage everyone to get, whether it's get both volumes, get the Purple Rain Sessions era book, get the Parade Sign of the Times era book. Those really illustrate what was actually going on. I mean, a lot of the biographies and stuff are cool, and a lot of anecdotes, a lot of great stories. But what really matters in the end is just the music, and how that music was put together. And it's fascinating. Like I said, there's nobody in music, I don't care how big they are, Prince's work ethic superseded everybody's. And it's when you kind of see it laid out in chronological order, the way those books do, man, just read them, get back to me, we'll discuss. But I think something like handling the Protégé albums in that particular context, and again, if you handle it responsibly with proper liner notes, documenting those sessions, how they came about, what was going on, what led to the culmination of the finished product. Yeah, I just think it adds more to the weight of just how tremendously talented Prince was. So, I mean, that's one possible solution. And again, like I said, better liner notes, identification of songs that were placed on associated artists. Again, just an evolution of the track. Starting with whatever. If Prince had a demo, then a version with a guide vocal, or if there was an original version that sounded completely different than what the end product was, include that. Just giving us a clue as to what really went on. Because even with, I would say, even the least favorite associated artist act, there's there's a level of, I don't know, a chance to really see what goes on in the making of an album. And like I said, we kind of judge like, oh, that album was great or that album wasn't great. Making records is not easy, just like making films. I could put together one, but, it's not going to be, it wouldn't be great. It might be interesting to some people, or it might sound good to some people. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I can make a record better than that, which is why, a lot of times, if you don't like a record, you just don't like a record. And it's okay to feel that way. But to, then turn around and say, oh, that person can't play, or they suck, or they just, then I'll tell you what, you go make an album and you see how easy it is. Or all these people in the background pretending to be whatever, engineers, pretending to be musicians or whatever. Oh, well, he didn't put the, the fifth, note, or he didn't play the triad properly and this and that. Okay, tell you what, you go make your album, get back to us. Show us how it's done. Because apparently the time, whether it's individuals or as a group, are still going on. They're still making money. They're still successful. And you don't have longevity unless you got something to back it up with. Point blank. So that's that. And I think, again, if you put the proper historical perspective on a lot of these projects, then you see the amount of work that goes into it. And at the end of the day, you still have to have a Morris Day sing the song. You still need a St. Paul. You still need a Sheila E. You still need a Vanity to, carry off the vision. And they executed his vision well. So they're great. Go support them. And that will end that topic. And we're going to move right along to the next topic, which is actually the main topic. And the main topic is about The Time. Their debut album is coming out in an expanded edition. That's a word we're hearing a lot about in 2021. We've had the Jacksons, their whole Epic Records catalog, Sony Legacy, even though they're digital. Only one album came out in physical media. That's the Jacksons Live. Go to my Amari Communications YouTube channel and check out my comparison of the remastered vinyl to the original CD of the Jacksons Live. But we're hearing that word in regards to the other albums, expanded editions, and basically it's hopefully, in the case of The Time, hopefully a remaster. Like the Jacksons, to me, a lot of the stuff sounded remastered, but that could have been based on possibly remasters done in 2009, both here in the U.S. and Japan, depending on which album we're talking about. But The Time is getting that expanded edition treatment. Like I said, the Jacksons, it's the original album, plus the single edits as bonus tracks, 12-inch mixes as bonus tracks. With The Time, we're getting those single edits as the bonus tracks for that second LP. And that will be coming out on July 16th. And that will be released by Warner Brothers through the Rhino Records subsidiary. Rhino Records is superb at handling a lot of legacy releases, a massive back catalog of legacy artists. And, they release things as the original albums. A lot of times they are remastered. A lot of times they come with bonus cuts. I'll get more in depth in regards to what I think should happen with The Time going forward from here in just a moment. But I'm going to read the press release for this debut album being reissued on July 16th of 2021. Press release goes: the debut album by Morris Day's band, The Time, written and produced with and performed almost entirely by Prince with vocals from Day, on LP for the first time since the original release, with a 6-track second LP of original single edits of 5 of the album songs, with Cool in 2 parts, in red and white vinyl. All right, so in addition to getting the original album, you're going to get a second LP along with that, with Get It Up, the single edit, Girl, single edit, Cool Part 1, and you're going to flip that vinyl over, then you'll get Cool Part 2, After High School, single edit, and The Stick, single edit. All right, so no information on if the album has been remastered. I hope so. In fact, like I said, I'll get into more of that in just a moment. As of this taping, no tracks have been leaked to any of the streaming services yet, so there's nothing I can use as a reference to tell if these are being remastered or not. However, remasters of the Times catalog were issued on CD in Japan in 2015. So most of those are completely sold out. I was able to order a copy of What Time Is It? I went on Amazon Japan and placed the order for that. That was the only one that was available. All the rest were completely sold out. Now, thanks to a supporter of Amari Purple Talk, I was sent the FLAC files for all of the Time remastered albums, as well as Morris Day's Color of Success and Daydreaming. And as I was kind of transferring the files to my USB so I can listen to them in the car, previewing tracks here and there. You may have seen my Twitter and Instagram photo of the Funk Face, because when I heard those tracks, I was like, I heard them in ways that I have never heard them before. Original vinyl, CD versions. To me, if you have them on CD, to me, the best listening experience, if you have like a Sony or a Fisher boombox, that is the best way to hear those CDs. Anything made in, say, like mid to late 90s and beyond, whether it's boombox or CD player, home entertainment system, your car, the sound isn't going to be as great, which is why I'm glad, at least on vinyl, these things are getting reissued and hopefully remastered. But those Japanese remasters blew those out of the water. Now, there have been some kind of rumblings on social media in regards to folks I was having a discussion with regarding these files and the remasters or possible remasters, that, the loudness factor. And yeah, there are sort of hints that, to me, it could be louder, although louder doesn't always mean better. But as far as the remaster, as far as the sort of dynamic range that I hear in listening to it, it's phenomenal. Although some nuances based on how my ears have been listening to these albums for the last 40 years or so, it is a bit of a challenge, but some of the elements that do come more to the forefront now are amazing. And it does, depending on the song, it does blend well with some of the elements that have sort of now been sort of blended in or buried more to the back of the mix. But overall, it's a great, they all sound great. And I hope that there will be some like reissue on like CD, maybe some type of set, that kind of gives, and more of an expanded form too, in the way of maybe some unreleased tracks, with, say, Morris Day's vocals or whatever, And the same thing with Morris's solo stuff, Color of Success and Daydreaming. Wow. And especially Daydreaming. That was an album I liked. I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff, even the stuff that Jam and Lewis didn't produce. I know they only produced 2 songs on that, but, I enjoy Morris's production, his writing. I liked a lot of the songs just as much as the ones on Color of Success. I still gravitate more towards Color of Success, but listening to the remastered tracks, to me, they breathe a lot better than whether it's, I would say, the original vinyl or the original CD. The remaster really breathes some, it's more, the tracks sound more lively and exciting. What's the one song? Like Moonlight, Passion Light. Like, I enjoyed it when I first got the album, but it's like one of those, when you go back, it's just kind of like, yeah, let me just hear Fishnet. Occasionally let me hear Love is a Game. Your Love is still like my favorite non-Jam and Lewis track on that, so that still got a lot of play. But the rest of the tracks on that, like I said, a song like Moonlight, Passion Light, yeah, it grooves. But to me, now hearing the remaster, I can go with that groove, and I'm more excited by the groove of it a lot longer than, the original, say, vinyl or the original CD of it. So I guess it's, yeah, I somewhat agree about the loudness factor on it, which kind of begs the question, Japanese remastering standards versus, say, Bernie Grubman mastering, or whatever mastering or remastering is done here in the U.S. Is that just a matter of, that's how the standards are there versus here? It's like, yeah, it sounds great, but they don't need to be loud. Where over here, there's a feeling of, not only does it have to be remastered or remixed, that it also has to be ultra loud too. So again, like I said, louder doesn't always make it better, but if the volume level still has to be a lot higher than what we have in the case of Prince or The Time, The Family, or any of those, it does have to be a lot louder than what we get when we do play our original CDs. Because otherwise, the vinyl versions or the cassette versions are the absolute best listening experience for everything from that era, with the exceptions now of the 1999 remaster and the Sign of the Times remaster as well. So any listeners in Japan or any listeners of Amari Purple Talk that would know of any of those subtle differences, correct me in the comments or educate me in the comments as to, are there different standards when it comes to remastering items in Japan versus, remastering songs here in the U.S. Also, too, I'm glad to see that The Time and this debut album is getting some well-deserved respect. If you remember, just over a month and a half ago, roughly, we, and what I mean by we, D'Angelo Duff spearheaded the 1+1+1=3 symposium. The topics were the anniversaries of the Controversy album, Diamonds and Pearls, and the Rainbow Children. As part of that 40-year celebration with Controversy, also celebrating 40 years of The Time, in which I was a participant in the roundtable discussion with the podcasters of Cool, Michael Dean, Mark Wiggins, Ricky Wyatt, and Prince's Friend. I have a link to that video if you have not seen it, so go by all means check that out. We discussed the Times debut album, so I'm glad that that album is getting its respect. And I don't know, as far as the material, I'm not sure there is a lot of vault material that could have been included. Like I said, now, based on what I'm currently reading, or what I've currently read in that particular section of the Parade era sessions, there was a little revelation that took place that hints that, could be a bonus cut or two or three or four, or at least one laying around. Now, again, like I said, I'm going to hold to the possibility that there's not a lot of unreleased material for the time, at least their debut anyway. And not a lot of people know, but some. Andre Simone was also originally part of, or at one point was going to be part of, contributing songs or ideas for the concept for the time. Now, I'm not sure if he actually wrote any songs for that project, and if he did, was there a chance for Prince and Morris Day to record any of those songs? Because obviously once Andre left, or he found out that, I guess, that there wasn't going to be any, compensation. I don't know I can't remember what the actual deal was with that particular project. But once Andre Simone decided to leave, obviously those songs either left with him or they were replaced with, more Prince tracks, obviously. So if there are any Andre Simone versions out there, then you can include those as part of the historical context, if there were some submitted. But that would definitely explain just the inclusion of just the single edits and why there's no bonus cuts. Hopefully, down the line, there'll be even more expanded edition, maybe something for CD, because you can hold more songs on the CD than you can on vinyl. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But what I would like to see going forward, so just like the Monkees, because Rhino Records handles all of the Monkees stuff too, and whether you're a fan or not, I include these references because it's a kind of a thing of why should rock artists have all the fun when it comes to these box sets and deluxe editions, whether it's Beatles, Bob Dylan, Zappa, Hendrix by osmosis, why should they have all the fun? It's like Prince, as funky or as pop or as rock as he is, deserves the same level of respect when it comes to his musical legacy as well. So I kind of bring up these references as, for those that aren't deep cut music fans, for a lot of newbies that come along or people that are just, because like for me, and a lot of, say, some of the other podcasters that are out there, Prince writers, that, whether they're journalists or book writers, this is our thing. Some of us are musicians on some level. And for us, we pay attention to the tracks and how they are made and how the studios work, how the music industry works, to where a lot of people in the mainstream, they can care less. There's a lot of family members where it's like, it would just fly over their heads. And that's not to mean that they don't know anything. It's just that, no, they're not musicians. They're not thinking about, they just hear the finished product and go, oh, finished product is great. Oh, I like this artist, or I like that song on the radio. So for us, and especially if you're a musician and you're into Prince and the time and how the Madhouse album works, how Jill Jones' album works, how Sheila E.'s album works, we pay attention to those things. We're listening to all the subtleties, how the background vocals are layered, what mics were used, what instruments were used. We're into all of that, and why there's even a discussion of the vault. Really, that's because we're that invested in that artist's career. And there's a lot of fans of, not necessarily even musicians, just fans of records, period, that, even if they don't know all the studio nuances, that it's like all they know is, oh, there's a song by this artist I haven't heard before, or there's a live recording that I haven't heard before. I have to have it. And there's a lot of, like I said, just mainstream people where it's like, well, what's this all about? Why do you care? Why you care about something that's unreleased? Or why do you care about something that's, isn't this live album good enough? Why do you want to hear another one? And that's just to give it some context. Because while, like I said, all those artists that I mentioned, there's box sets that come out right and left. There's vault tracks that surface right and left. And they're officially produced. They're endorsed by that artist's estate. They're endorsed by that artist's record company. And they're at fair market value. And even if it's bootlegged, there's some stuff that's running around bootleg. Again, fans of music, fans of records. It's a completion thing. There are collectors that are just completists that have to have every note. Prince at one point had to have every note James Brown ever played. So that's just being a fan of music and a deep fan. So again, these references. And to look at a Rhino Records, and again, a group like the Monkees that don't get a lot of respect in the rock and roll circles, but they've had a lot of hits. They have a lot of fans. And they have deluxe editions galore, and they have vault tracks galore, and they have live albums galore. So a band to me that is even more talented than the Monkees, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy a lot of the Monkees records, but I feel like a group like The Time deserves that same respect, because no, they didn't get to play on the albums, not 100%, but they had to interpret that live, and they interpreted live and took it to a whole nother level, created a whole nother thing that became even bigger. And had they stayed together, who knows? It would have been even bigger than what we can imagine right now. But just like those, the Monkees, I think that Rhino should release Time albums in a remastered form with any unreleased tracks available. I think that Rhino should release standalone live CDs and DVDs. Especially with Ice Cream Castles. If they do a reissue of that one in the vein of the Times debut album, if this is an inkling as to what's to come, then the Ice Cream Castles reissue must include the studio version of The Bird and Jungle Love. Now, I think that the version of Jungle Love that you hear in the movie is the actual studio version of it. I have to check the Purple Rain Sessions book to verify that. But if you have not heard the studio version of The Bird, the first time I heard the studio version of The Bird, I was around 2007 or 8. And this is back in the MySpace days. Remember that, folks? And Jesse Johnson's MySpace page. And he dropped that track on his MySpace page. And I would go back there and just play that over and over. That is funky. Again, like I said, if you haven't heard it, if you can find it somewhere, by all means, check it out. I like it better than the version that's on the album, and that's a live version that's on the Ice Cream Castles album. But this version, it's all Prince on the instruments, and it's just, Morris on the vocals. And I'm telling you, it is funky and it deserves an official release. So, again, if they come out with an Ice Cream Castles reissue to the magnitude of this Time debut, here you have some more flexibility, so you can include some definite vault gems in the wake of, like I said, the studio version of Jungle Love and the studio version of The Bird. Maybe the original version of My Summertime Thing. That can be included on that too. That's a track that really kind of grew on me. I know Prince didn't like it. Jam and Lewis loved it, which is why it's on Pandemonium or ended up on Pandemonium. Actually, I think Prince warmed up to it by including it on the Corporate World, the unreleased Time album. Different version of it exists on that. But what changed my mind about the track was hearing D'Angelo play it live. I think it was at the Summer Jam. I think that was like 2013 or something like that. And he had Jesse Johnson and Eric Leeds as part of the band with him. I think that's still on video somewhere. By all means, check that out too. Probably on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, if and when they come out with a Time, and if they don't do it with this set, if they do like a more comprehensive thing with the Time, definitely those two, and especially the studio version of The Bird, definitely needs to be included. Yeah. And just to kind of, let's see, I got one more point. No, actually, that's it. Like I said, I covered CDs and DVDs, live CDs, do a standalone. Because, like I said, the Monkees have standalone live albums. Then you can give the Time live too. And, like I said, that's the original 7. They brought it every single time. And that part of their legacy really needs to be pronounced, when it comes to these reissues. It's great that we're getting reissues, and I think that is a step in the right direction. Also, too, I'm still campaigning for them to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, yeah, definitely these reissues help. Also, too, get some of these standalone live albums out there or DVDs. Let the world see what they were, because they were our best kept secret. This is pre-Purple Rain. This is pre-pop, pre-mainstream, pre-superstar Prince, and that triple threat, even before then, this was our best kept secret. Prince, yeah, he brought his thing. He was funky and, had the rock guitar and everything and the punk and the new wave. But the Time just brought the funk. And if they were P-Funk, they would have brought the bomb. They were, just those 7, and with just the 2 keyboards and the bass and the guitar and drums. And, Jerome, even though he was bringing the mirror, he kind of had his little contribution, with the percussion as well. And, again, it's one of those things. It's not just nostalgia. It's fact. And I mean, they gave Prince a run for his money every night because they were that hungry and they were that tight as a band. And again, as we kind of get into, if your first exposure of the Time was through Purple Rain, that was just a movie representation of how good the Time was supposed to be, but remember, Morris Day was one of the main characters. So the focus was on that as opposed to the band in general. And that's just because it's Prince's movie, of course. But in reality, again, you had Prince, and especially when, you had Dez in lieu of Wendy, coming in with the rock influence. Yeah, I mean, that version of Prince's band versus the original 7, yeah, it was a constant battle night after night, and just to see what the time brought on stage. And I understand that what we got with the live DVD on the 1999 Super Deluxe, both The Time and Vanity 6 also were filmed that same night. So you have video in that type of quality that can be brought out, and just bring out the Time set. Just bring it out. And, bring out the Vanity 6 set. Because again, there's categories in which the Time as a band can qualify in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And this stuff helps. It helps show whoever's, part of that committee and everything. Like I said, I don't know if we need to do letter writing campaign, petitions, hashtags, just like release the Snyder Cut, release the live Time cuts, DVD, CD. Make those things happen, because the more these things get released now, then you see the quality of work that went into that band, their execution of what Prince's vision was. And it lets these type of things, like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or even, the Grammys, Lifetime Achievement Awards, whatever. You see the talent and the skill and the hard work and just what it meant to people for then to see that. And those things help for those people that make these decisions realize, oh, yeah, they were great. Oh, yeah, they were that. Wow, they meant that much to R&B at that time, or funk. Oh, yeah, let's induct them next year. You're starting to see where the Go-Go's are just starting to get in, and other people around that came around in the 80s at that time are eligible. So, yeah, they deserve it big time. So that's in a nutshell. We'll keep that part of it going. Like I said, I don't know how much of a deeper dive, if I have to join some committees to make a difference, or what we have to do, if I have to get some of these folks and interview them and let the world see and hear and understand what the stories and everything. We'll make that happen. So that's definitely going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Once I get the Japanese remaster of What Time Is It, once it arrives, I'll do a special video review. Once the Time's debut album is released, I'll do a comparison video of the Time's debut reissue versus the original vinyl. So both of those will be on YouTube, so be on the lookout for that. And hopefully, like I said, next week, it depends on how much I can get rid of Dwayne Tudhall's Parade, Sign of the Times Era Sessions, 1985, 1986. That will be next week's episode, hopefully. But thank you once again for sharing your time by listening to this episode. You can continue your support for Amari Purple Talk by either purchasing Amari Communications merchandise, and that has items such as Amari Purple Talk t-shirts, mugs, and masks. And we also have We Funk t-shirts, so to the last beat, to the last bass, to the last band, We Funk. And hopefully I get to finish that record soon and get that out too. I've been putting that off too long. But definitely get the t-shirt for sure. You can also make a CashApp donation for any amount you wish. Links are in the show notes or in the button in the Amari Communications channel banner on YouTube. But until then, be safe, be peaceful, be wild, create your day, and then create your life, and keep it purple and on the one.